In Nepal, we all know quarantine facilities lack water, sanitation, and safety. They are becoming the breeding center for coronavirus. So, in response to the government's lack of urgency, transparency, and accountability concerning COVID 19 management, a series of non-violent, citizen-led, non-partisan protests have been held across the country. The Satyagraha began on 26 June 2020. These protests were self-organized, leaderless, and spontaneous. Demanding the expansion of PCR tests and end of corruption, some youths came to a self-generated movement with a slogan, "Enough is enough." Nepal today finds itself on the verge of a catastrophic explosion in the number of COVID-19 cases. But is this the right time to protest during such pandemic? Are they using any protection for themselves? Corruption has been a long problem within Nepal state and even before the pandemic. Are we choosing the right time to protest? Nepal's coronavirus crisis is poised to worsen in the coming week. As the country reopens and allows in more migrant returns, the infection rate is likely to skyrocket. Fast-track dispute in Khokhana. Locals in Khokhana on the southern outskirts of Kathmandu Valley have clashed with police personnel in their effort to plant rice in their fields. Law enforcers tried to stop the local for cultivating the land, claiming the government already acquired it to construct the Kathmandu-Tarai fast track. However, the locals have refused any compensation for the land, arguing the project would displace them from their field. The police fired tear gas shells to disperse the protesters, numbering approximately 2,000. Though the government has acquired the land, the locals said that they have not received compensation for their land. People have their physical, spiritual, social, culture, and economic connection with the land and have their identity attached to it. The fast track will start at Sikali and go through Pinga, the funeral area, Kude, Jugunti, Machaga Bajar, Changku Tirtha, all the important parts of Khokhana's cultural circuit on the route to the next town of Bungamati. The project will take up a portion of Srikali Chaur, where the annual Sikali Jatra is celebrated. We cannot avoid development, but at the same time, we cannot hurt the sentiments of the local people. The community will also lose the temple of its ancestral deity, Pinga, and the expressway will take away the funeral area from where music is played during cremation. The community of neighbors will lose the sacred place where they have been cremating their ancestors for generations. At Changku Tirtha, the expressway will go through the land where the final rites of the priest of Rato Machindranath are performed. The people of Khokhana had voiced concern about their land being taken away for decades. First, it was the army that nationalized 17 hectares of their farmhood to conduct army exercise. The army still retains a small part of it, and the rest was sold off to private housing. Khokhana farmers got nothing. Then, the government nationalized another 100 hectares for leprosy hospital, a training facility for the armed police officer, and a prison. None of the land was used for the intended purpose and was sold off to private builders. Protests, by their nature, lead to clustering of large group of people. Police are dealing with this by crowding people together to control their movement, a tactic known as kettling, and spraying tear gas. When protesters are detained, they are often placed in crowded vans and cells. These conditions are ideal for the transmission of COVID-19. Tear gas irritates mucous membranes, causing people to cough and remove face masks. The proximity of other protesters increases the risk of infection. Additionally, people who are asymptomatic plays a large role in the infection and increase the possibility of transmission in settings where physical distancing is nearly impossible to observe. Crowds of people, many maskless and yelling, can pose a health risk to one another in the middle of the pandemic. One of the greatest threats is that people may be spreading the disease before they know they have it. Protesters who may have been exposed to these silent spreaders then risk bringing it into their own homes and neighborhood, putting their friends and families at risk if they don't take precaution. There are measures that protesters can take to reduce their risks of infection and transmission at demonstration. Public health advice is even more important to follow during large gatherings, such as wearing masks, distancing wherever possible, and using hand sanitizer. When protesters return home, they should wash their hands, shower, and change clothes. If living with an older relative or someone more vulnerable, make sure to isolate them from them. Protesters themselves are not necessarily ignoring the pandemic. Most of the demonstration appear to be wearing masks and attempting to adhere to some sort of social distancing. But the evidence does not reveal universal compliance with public health guidelines. Many protests have involved some form of shouting, chanting, or singing, which research suggests can be especially effective modes of transmission for the virus. The famous Machindranath Jatra in Lalitpur is in the process of construction of the chariot. The chariot is constructed at Pulchok at the western end of Lalitpur. Machindranath is the deity of rain, and when the rath is pulled, it always rains, to signify that the god is pleased by what the worshippers are doing. Biscuit Jatra and tongue-piercing festival of Bhaktapur and Seto Machindranath Jatra of Kathmandu have also been postponed for this year. We cannot risk spreading the pandemic by allowing large congregation of people. The festival true essence indeed comes from the crowd that comes together to celebrate it, and we cannot risk that right now. Strict measures need to be adopted to halt the spread of the coronavirus during this pandemic. Just as the outbreak was unfolding, Philadelphia threw a parade with 200,000 people marching in support of World War I effort. By the end of the week, 4,500 people were dead from the flu. So be the cancellation of our favorite festivals. If we aren't alive, there won't be a festival next year anyway. We cannot risk anyone's life for any reason during this pandemic. Times are tough, and we need to be more careful for ourselves and others as well. Coronavirus has been detected in drainage water in 2 places of Kathmandu Valley. The samples were collected from 4 places inside the valley. This shows that there had been a community transmission in the valley. The number of coronavirus infection cases in Kathmandu Valley are slowly but steadily rising. People need to follow social distancing measures, use face masks, and allow other safety measures. The crowding condition associated with mass protests over government policy, police violence, and to perform festivals seem likely to add dozens of people, or perhaps even hundreds, to daily death toll from coronavirus infection. It feels as though we have largely given up on controlling the epidemic and have resigned ourselves to living alongside it. At a protest, it is sometimes impossible to remain few feet apart from other protesters. People should stay away from any sort of gathering if anyone is feeling sick. Mass gathering in the name of protest or festival are a nightmare from a public health perspective. If we fail to act now, knowing what we know, seeing what we have seen, history will record our failures regarding public health. Missing a funeral or any festival is painful. Keeping a business closed is painful and causes real harm. No one doubts that. The question is, can you live with the consequences? There is no perfectly safe way to demonstrate in a huge gathering during a pandemic, and the threat of the new waves of COVID is still very real. It's also possible COVID-19 will spread due to the law enforcement response. Throwing tear gas into crowds, making people cough, forcing them into smaller and smaller spaces, and then arresting them and confining them in small jail cells. If a person is wearing a mask and is exposed to tear gas, the tear gas could get on the mask and cause skin irritation. If this happens, some may not be able to tolerate the additional discomfort caused by the mask and may remove it, giving the virus more opportunities to spread. It's possible the infection will spread both ways. We also know mass gatherings are risky, even if the people take precaution. Yes, it's safer that the protests are outside. Yes, it's safer when people wear masks. It's safer when people try to distance themselves from one another. But there is no such thing as zero risk with the virus. The debate about the pandemic protest raises a question. What is the great cost to society? The spread of COVID-19 or not protesting for the government's action in this moment? Where is Nepal heading during this pandemic? Is this the right time to protest or to do any kind of gathering in the name of festival? Police reaction to the protest certainly could be what could lead to a spreading event more than protests on their own. You have a right to demonstrate. You have a right to protest. But you don't have a right to infect other people. You don't have a right to act in a way that's going to jeopardize public health. Are we choosing the right time and right place to protest?